Hearty welcome to all of you for this evening. I would like to quote just two reference points from KPMG research. One of these is from an Indian context in terms of management capability index that we do along with All India Management Association. The current report, the 2016 report, if you read, there is a critical finding there for all of us as HR leaders as well as business leaders. It points out that the overall score, if you look at the management capability index in the country, the overall score has increased to 75%. It's a scale of 0 to 100, so 100 is the optimal level, but 75 is reasonably good level, and it has increased from the previous year's score of 66% to 75%, which is a very positive jump in terms of overall management capability index. But what is really worrying is that this management capability index encompasses all functional capabilities. So it encompasses marketing, finance, IT, HR, several functional areas. So if you look into the functional competencies, there are two competencies that are relevant to us as HR professionals, as HR champions, which have seen a dip in terms of management score. One is in terms of people leadership, where the score is below 75, it's at 70. And the second is in terms of organizational capability. Directly or indirectly, we as HR leaders are responsible for that. That stands at 67%. These two findings are extremely relevant for us as HR leaders to look into how this can help organizations, create organizations. So my first question is to the panelists. In general, it's open to anybody who wants to pick it up. In your experience, in terms of handling your organizations, preparing these organizations for future, for preparing intelligent organizations, for building intelligent organizations, what is, in your opinion, the top 2 or 3 critical factors that we should keep in mind?
In my view, apart from all the infrastructure and the cultural things which are needed to call some organization as a knowledge organization, so fundamentally it has to start with a respect for knowledge. And then, of course, at a more operational level, there have to be mechanisms for capturing knowledge. There has to be mechanism for updating that knowledge. So all that is, I think, very well documented, and this is not something new. But what I have noticed is the real problem is all this doesn't transform into usable knowledge or intelligence which drives actions and decisions. And I think one of the reasons for this is that while organizations say they are knowledge organizations, but they are not really democratized as far as knowledge is concerned. So in today's context, I think one of the things is the organization has to create almost like a Wikipedia kind of ecosystem. And the knowledge has to be captured on a real-time basis. And this is really the difficulty. And again, taking the tip from the current organizations and the technology which is available, it should be literally that every human being in the organization has got an app in his head. And whatever he's experiencing is getting uploaded to the cloud. So there's a cloud there, and more importantly, it's coming back to him. And banks have it, credit cards are using it. You go outside Phoenix and you'll get an SMS saying that, hey, Mr. So-and-so, you are outside so-and-so outlet. There's a discount sale going on. So it's usable knowledge when you need it. But in an organization, this reverse flow of knowledge, usable knowledge, does not really happen. And therefore, I think some of the times when all the underpinnings of a knowledge organization are there, it really doesn't come down to usability. So in my view, one of the things is respect for knowledge, yes, but respect for people, because knowledge and intelligence is not the prerogative of some people at the top of the organization.
For me, intelligence means how does a cohort in the organization, the whole organization, respond to partners, to stakeholders, to competition. How does it make a judgment? How do you apply your intelligence to make a judgment? It could be based on a market survey, it could be based on all the tools of knowledge management, but how do you make a judgment? For example, I'd like to believe that the major chunk of my company, Larsen and Toubro, needs project management intelligence, if I may have the permission of inventing a word. How do you make a judgment in a particular project to take a risk and so on? My own feeling is that there are 3 or 4, first of all, blockers to intelligence, which are cultural blockers, because all organizations are intelligent. There's nothing called a dumb organization. But then those blockers are the ones, perhaps, which make some organizations unable to leverage their intelligence. One is not respecting diversity. Now, I'm not talking about only gender diversity, but talking a little bit about HR mumbo jumbo. There are 8 types of multiple intelligences, what Howard Gardner talks about. We love stereotypes in conference rooms. There is a music intelligence, there is number intelligence, there's linguistic intelligence. There are various people designed to do different things. Respecting that is very important. My colleague there talked about it.
Whilst I agree with him that organizations are not dumb organizations, but corporate graveyards are full of unintelligent organizations which did not move with the required challenges of sociology, economy, market situations, and due to their lack of intelligence, ultimately lost their position of prime, which they enjoyed at a given point of time, and therefore landed up in a corporate graveyard. When you look at and talk about intelligent organizations, predominantly there are 2 things you are talking about, and which I find that generally HR professionals, any professionals tend to mix up. Intelligent organizations are based on 2 elements: intellect required for the organization and intelligence required. Now, because of the phonetical similarity, we tend to confuse it, but there is a certain element of intellectual capital an organization needs to have to build its capability to be able to exploit the opportunities it gets in the marketplace. You need to have that intellectual capability. After that, the dynamic market keeps throwing so many new challenges, so many new variables, that unless and until your organization has a capability for intelligence, as in CIA intelligence, to be able to research and find out as to what is happening in the market, which are the variables which are impacting, what is the insight in the changing environment that's going to impact the existing capital of knowledge that you have got, unless you have that, your ability to survive in the market is not there. So there are organizations who believe that they have stuck themselves in the old world of knowledge that they had, did not move with the new situations and challenges, and therefore became unintelligent or not so intelligent organizations to differentiate from dumb organizations. And that's the reality.
If you really want to build an intelligent organization, there has to be a culture of, embracing diversity, which you spoke about. But I think it's more importantly about intelligence today is spread across the entity. So how do you build a culture where the learning across the organization kind of happens at, great speed? And I guess the objective would be that the sum of the intelligence of every individual in the organization actually adds up and is exponentially larger than the sum really. And I think the other bit, you talked about diversity. I think one of the challenges, and you said the factors really would be about today an organization employs 5 generations of workforce. So how do you get the intelligence across those generations into what you're going to be doing really?
Artificial intelligence is moving at a rapid clip, and it is likely to automate 69% of rule-based tasks in India in next 20 years. So that's number 1. Number 2, as we look around, even in the traditional organizations, Yogi sits on a traditional, I sit on a mix of traditional and modern organization. Increasingly, corporate profits and values are coming through intellectual capital and assets, and less towards the physical or financial assets. So that's the second thread I would like you to capture. Third thing, if you look at this, another trend which has been very obvious, that increasingly the difference between products and services is vanishing, and products themselves becoming services itself. What does it all do? What it is telling me is that whatever is a regular rule-based task is going to vanish. Therefore, organization is going to develop a capability not to repeat rule-based tasks, but its people to have an ability to respond to situations in a real time. That's number 1. Number 2, the product service conundrum that I'm talking about leads to one conclusion in my mind, is if every product is a service, then what is a good quality service? And if all of us have experienced service, and to my mind, a simple explanation is that that service I call excellent, where I take a problem to a person and he solves it immediately. And most of the time, the problem that I take to him is a unique to me, and therefore he is not able to look at a script book and answer my queries, but he has the capability and he has been enabled to take certain decisions.
I think HR systems in many organizations, I'd like to exclude mine for the time being, are based on the work of B.F. Skinner. What B.F. Skinner did was, he put rats in a maze, and he put a little bit of cheese somewhere in the maze, and then he thought he should gauge the intelligence of these rats by giving them a little electric shock whenever they took the wrong turn. So they learnt very quickly to take the right turn, and they found the cheese. But then after some time, the rats got bored. They said, electric shock or no electric shock, leave the cheese, we'll sit where we are. So my point is, most organizations base their reward and punishment systems based on so-called successes, on short term, on certain goals and so on, which I'm not so sure are conducive to foster intelligence. I wanted to leave that little cat in the pigeons. And the second point I want to make is about R&D spends. If you take the most intelligent organizations today, the so-called intelligent organization, all the R&D seems to be going where the capital is flowing, in the so-called asset-light internet organizations, the digital organizations and so on. So that kind of R&D is very different from the R&D in conventional organizations. That kind of R&D needs data scientists. This kind of R&D in conventional organizations needs people who are PhDs and stuff, not the type who will only write algorithms. We need to distinguish that very clearly.